All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to Diabetes Talk. I'm your host, Charlie O'Connell. We are broadcasting live from New Haven, Connecticut, and I am so excited that you're joining me tonight. I want to do a huge shout out to everyone who joined us just a couple minutes ago for our GLUCOSEZONE Level 1 strength training workout. It was an awesome workout, and for everyone who did that workout, you guys should be proud of yourself. I'm feeling great. I know you're feeling great too. Let's say what's up to Instagram. Instagram, I see you guys. I can't wait to get your questions. And a huge shout out to Maria joining us on Facebook, Jen joining us on Facebook, Sutahi, yes, I see you on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us. And Jeanette, okay, on YouTube, and everybody else who's joining us around the world, guys, welcome. Diabetes Talk is all about answering your questions, providing you with very practical and real life advice, okay, about how to have success reducing, reversing, and controlling your diabetes, and using exercise in its most beneficial form. Let me do a huge shout out to Andrew, the Mad Fanatic. Andrew, I see you on Instagram. Guys, speaking of the Mad Fanatic, I want everyone to check out the Mad Fanatic. We are working on a collaboration right now with the Mad Fanatic that is going to completely take the whole diabetes world and flip it on its head. I cannot wait to share it with you, okay? And I want to do a huge shout out to Fifi joining us in the GlucoSezone app. And Fifi, I saw you this morning in GlucoSezone Live. I'm so proud of you for joining us again tonight. Guys, when you put the work in, okay, when you double it up like Fifi, double it up like Deleslin, I see you too, Deleslin, okay? You guys, the results come. So let me just, tonight's talk, guys, is about really explaining where and how glucose is stored in your body. And I'm going to give you some real strong imagery that hopefully will help you understand how actual glucose management works in your body and give you some very, very practical tips as to how to have more success doing that. So it's fundamental to managing your diabetes is understanding where and how glucose is stored in your body. And we have an analogy here at GlucoSezone that we like to use to help people to understand that, and it's called the parking lot analogy. And it's pretty straightforward and simple, okay? In your body, you have 4 parking lots for sugar, okay? And in the parking lot analogy, there are 4 characters. There is the glucose molecule. The glucose molecule is like a car traveling on a road, okay? You have your blood vessels. Your blood vessels are the road that the car is traveling on. You have insulin. Insulin is like a traffic cop that manages the storage of sugar into your parking lots. And you have your parking lots. And the 4 parking lots in your body for sugar are your brain, your liver, your muscle, and your fat tissue. Okay? Now, parking lot number 1, the VIP parking lot for sugar in your body is your brain. There should never ever be a single space empty in your brain. Your brain's parking lot should always be full. And this is the first parking lot that sugar travels to when you eat it. So anytime you eat food and that food converts into glucose, the very first place that that glucose will travel to is your brain. And it will check, are there any spaces empty in your brain? Now, have any of you guys seen that funny Snickers commercial where it says, the guy turns into Joe Pesci, okay, and the character says, here, have a Snickers, you're not acting like yourself, and then the person eats the Snickers and they come back to themselves? Well, that's a funny way to describe when your brain parking lot has a few empty spaces. Okay? Then you eat something like a Snickers bar, and immediately you start feeling back to normal. Okay? So your brain is the VIP parking lot, and it's the most important parking lot. There should never be a single space empty in your brain. Now, if your brain parking lot is full, the next parking lot that the glucose molecule will travel to is your liver. Now, your liver can store between 70 and 80 grams worth of carbohydrate. Okay? And just to give you a frame of reference, that's like 2 or 3 granola bars. Now, if the glucose molecule gets to your liver and there are spaces empty, the glucose molecule will go in there. But if there are no spaces in your liver, okay, if there's no more room in your liver parking lot, it doesn't matter how much insulin is in your body. If there's no room in your liver, there's no room in your liver, okay? And the glucose molecule cannot be stored there. And if that's the case, the glucose molecule will travel to the next parking lot, which is your muscle tissue. Now, your muscle tissue can store anywhere between 300 and 800 grams worth of carbohydrate in it. Your muscle tissue is the primary tissue that insulin is designed to work with. Okay? If your muscle parking lot, right, is large and you exercise on a daily basis, you are going to have many, many parking spots available in your muscles for the storage of glucose. But just like your liver, if your muscles are full, right, it doesn't matter how much insulin is present in your body. If there is no space available in your muscles for sugar, there's no space available for sugar in your muscles. It doesn't matter how much insulin is present in your body. And, right, the more you exercise, the larger your muscles become, the more parking spaces available, and vice versa. The less you exercise, the smaller your muscles become, the less parking space available. And if there are no parking spaces available for sugar in your muscles, then the sugar molecule itself will travel to the last parking lot, which is your fat tissue. Now, your fat tissue is like the long-term parking at JFK Airport. Right? It's the last parking lot on the road. Your car is going to check the first 3 parking lots for any space before it heads to the fat parking lot. Okay? So the fat parking lot is the last parking lot that a glucose molecule will head to. It's also the parking lot that takes the longest to come out of. Okay? There's a reason there is a reason for that. When glucose is stored in your liver or your muscle tissue, it is stored in the form of glycogen. Glycogen is a readily accessible, readily available source of energy that your muscles and your brain can use for activity. Whereas when glucose is stored in your fat tissue, in your adipocyte cell, it's stored as a triglyceride, okay? And that triglyceride has to be reconverted back into glucose in order to be available as energy. So, those are the 4 parking lots, guys. All right? Now, why is this so important to understand? Well, it's important to understand for several reasons. The first thing is it really helps to explain why exercise is so fundamental to diabetes management. Okay? It helps explain why exercise can literally reverse type 2 diabetes, why exercise can literally reverse prediabetes. Okay? After the age of 25, our bodies without exercise naturally start to lose muscle mass. Okay? And if you don't exercise after the age of 25, your body on average will lose about 2% of its muscle mass every year. So if you go 15 years without exercising from the age of 25 to 40, you will literally lose 30% of your muscle mass. That means you lose 30% of your body's ability to store sugar. Okay? As soon as you start exercising, that does two things. The first thing it does is exercise empties out your muscle parking lot. And I'm going to give you a very, very concrete example of exactly what that means. I want everybody, if you're watching this watching this on YouTube right now, I want you to put your arms out like this, and I want you to start doing some arm circles. Okay? Don't be shy. I know this looks funny, but this is a very, very effective way of understanding. Now, when I start doing these arm circles, do I feel anything? No, right? I can go around and around and around, and I don't feel anything. But after about 10 to 15 seconds, what's starting to happen? All of a sudden, I'm starting to get this burning sensation in my shoulders. Now, with every rotation of my arm, it's becoming harder and harder to move my arms, and that burning sensation, okay, that buildup of lactic acid is becoming more and more intense until I get to the point where I can't move my arms anymore. All right, go ahead and stop. What you just felt right there was the emptying out of that muscle's parking lot. The depletion of glycogen, okay, is indicated by the presence of lactic acid. So literally, that feeling that you just had tells you you emptied out those muscles of any stored glycogen. When you empty your muscles out of stored glycogen, that immediately creates the space for excess glucose in your blood to be stored by excess insulin. So that's one of the ways, and helps explain why exercise is so fundamental to reducing and reversing diabetes. Now, let me take you now even to a further breakdown and explanation. Let's talk about the fat parking lot. Your fat parking lot is made up of something called adipocyte tissue. Okay? Adipocyte cells are literally receptor cells where triglycerides are deposited. And you can think of them as a little tiny cup, this is a good example, where a triglyceride is deposited in. And a triglyceride is literally a droplet, okay, of glucose that gets stored into your adipocyte cell. Now, the average human being has about 4 billion adipocyte cells. And when your 4 billion adipocyte cells are full, that represents about 30 pounds of fat. Okay? Now, once you fill up your adipocyte cells, if you have type 2 diabetes, if you have a history of diabetes, if you are genetically susceptible to type 2 diabetes, you can become something called insulin resistant. And what insulin resistance means is your cells have become resistant to the effects of insulin. It does not mean that your body is not producing enough insulin. It literally means your cells are resistant to the effects of insulin. Now, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever seen the TV show My 600-Pound Life? My 600-Pound Life is a very popular reality TV show here in America. And it's about people that have extraordinary obesity, people that weigh 600, 700, even 800 pounds. Now, the reason why I bring that show up is because people who weigh 600, 700, or 800 pounds, their body's physiology is fundamentally different than the general population. Okay? And what's different about them is they have the ability to continuously build more fat parking lots. The scientific term for that ability is called adipocyte hyperplasia. What adipocyte hyperplasia means is the ability to replicate and create more adipocyte cells. Okay? That is how and why a person who's 600 pounds can weigh 600 pounds and not have diabetes. So let's take a person who weighs 600 pounds. Let's say that every single parking space in their body is full. There is not a single parking lot available for glucose in their body. Then they go to McDonald's, they get a Big Mac, fries, and a Diet Coke. Okay? And they eat that. What does their body do? Their body starts construction of a whole new fat parking garage. Right? Their blood sugar levels will stay totally flat the whole time. And the reason why is because they have the cells available to receive the excess glucose derived from that food. That is not what happens to the general population, and specifically not what happens to people who have type 2 diabetes or who are susceptible to type 2 diabetes. People who have type 2 diabetes do not have the ability to continuously build more fat parking lots. Okay? They have something called adipocyte hypertrophy. What adipocyte hypertrophy means is the size of the fat cell can grow, but it cannot multiply and replicate. So what happens is, once you fill up your fat parking lot, you can grow the size of those fat cells a little bit. And the literature varies, but basically, it's kind of been established that you can expand adipocyte tissue anywhere from 2 to 3 times. Okay? What the bottom line, what that means is, if you become 60 pounds overweight or 90 pounds overweight, and we see this like clockwork in the GLUCOSEZONE, as soon as somebody crosses that tipping point of their fat cells have reached maximum capacity, it doesn't matter how much insulin is in their body, they literally cannot store any more glucose. And the only thing that's left to happen is the excess glucose starts circulating around the blood, okay, leading to elevated blood sugar levels. And that is literally the cause of type 2 diabetes for the vast majority of people living with diabetes. Now, I'm going to post something on Facebook, and our team is going to post this on YouTube here in 1 second. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to watch it, okay? What I just posted on Facebook, if you're watching this on Facebook, is a very funny video of rush hour on a Japanese subway train. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch that video. Okay? Now, when you press play on that video, what you're going to see is a subway train pulling up to a station, and the subway train is already full of people. Then you're going to see the doors to the train open up, and a whole bunch of people try and get in the train, but the train is already full. The people cannot get into the train. Next, you're going to see train conductors and traffic cops trying to push people into the train. And I'm sure you can guess what that represents. The people, the subway train represents your fat cells, a fat cell that's already full. The people on the platform represent glucose, excess glucose trying to get into a fat cell. And the conductors, the traffic cops, represent insulin. Okay, and watch that funny video because you'll see literally the traffic conductor trying to push the people into the subway. And when one traffic cop does not work, then a second comes, then a third comes, then a fourth comes, and et cetera, okay? That is literally what happens to people who develop type 2 diabetes, okay? You literally run out of space for the storage of glucose, and when that happens, you temporarily swell your fat cells, you temporarily have an increase in the secretion of insulin, okay? But ultimately, your body becomes more and more resistant to insulin itself, right? And it's very, very important to understand that insulin resistance does not mean your body is not producing enough insulin. What it means is your cells have become resistant to the effects of insulin. All right, so guys, I hope that that was a easy to understand and that you could follow that explanation of where and how glucose is stored in your body. I guarantee you that if you really, really embrace that understanding, that is going to dictate how you eat, when you exercise, and when you eat. So let me give you a very, very practical, personal example of how knowledge of that process helped me, yesterday. So yesterday was Christmas, right? And in my family, we have a big Italian Christmas dinner where basically we're eating a ton of food and very, very rich food, things like food like lasagna and food like that, okay? So I woke up with my kids. My kids opened their presents. They were very excited. But then, I went and got some exercise. And the reason why I went and got some exercise was I knew I had to empty out my muscle parking lots. So I went for a half an hour jog. Now, my fitness level is very high, so going for a run or a jog is what I required to empty out my muscle parking lots. I could have just as easily have done one of the GLUCOSEZONE workouts that we've created, okay? But the point is that I went to empty out my muscle parking lots before I ate. And the reason why I did that was I knew that I was going to be eating a lot of food, number one. And number two, I was very conscious of where and how that food was going to be stored in my body. And I knew that if I exercised before eating, I was going to create the space in my muscles for the storage of that food. Whereas if I didn't exercise before eating, where do you think that that food-derived glucose would have gone? It would have gone straight to my fat cells. And this is so important to understand because there are a lot of myths about timing of food consumption. And one of the worst ones is this myth that misunderstanding that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and that basically you should be eating a big breakfast. That is some of the worst advice you can possibly give to somebody living with diabetes. And it's very easy to understand. What is the typical breakfast for America? It's either cereal or something like a bagel, maybe toast, okay, even a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, all right, waffles. So let's just play that out. Let's say that you go to sleep and you wake up, okay? So you have been inactive, you have been resting for 8 to 10 hours. Then you wake up and let's say that you have a bacon, egg, and cheese, okay, and a cup of yogurt and berries. Let's just play this out for a second. What parking lot do you think that bacon, egg, and cheese and that yogurt and berries is going to? Is it going to your brain? I don't think so. You've been asleep for 10 hours. Why would your brain be empty? Is it going to your liver? No, your liver has been topped off by whatever dinner you ate the night before. Is it going to your muscles? No, why would it go to your muscles? You literally have been sleeping for the last 8 to 10 hours. So where is it going? You guessed it. You understand it. It's going straight to your fat cells. Okay? It's also causing an excess secretion of insulin in your body. Guys, the reason why we call insulin is like a traffic cop is because insulin does two things. It manages the storage of sugar. It also simultaneously inhibits fat metabolism. So what that means is when insulin becomes present in your blood, it does two things. It goes, stop fat, come on in sugar. And as long as insulin is present in your blood, it's going to cause the absorption of sugar into your liver, into your muscle, and your fat parking lot, and it's going to inhibit the metabolism of fat. You cannot gain access to fat when insulin is present in your blood. Okay? This is basically one of the reasons, yes, okay. So there you go. So, Deleslin, just breaking it down, triglycerides come down when you get in the glucose zone because of these principles that we are explaining. Now, Deleslin, if you start green juicing in the morning, okay, I guarantee you will see those triglycerides coming down even further because green juice for breakfast does two things. It gives you all of the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that your body needs to feel healthy and to feel satiated with zero or very, very little insulin requirement. And what that actually does inside your body is it enables your body to start breaking down triglycerides and using them, converting them into sources of energy. It literally enables you to start the process of healthy fat metabolism. This is why, guys, we advocate so strongly, why I personally advocate so strongly the incorporation of green juice for breakfast. Every single morning, I do a green juice for breakfast. That does two things. Gives me all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients I need, and enables healthy fat metabolism in my body for the whole rest of the morning. So I go every morning from approximately 7 a.m. until I eat lunch around 1 p.m., where fat metabolism is the primary form and source, okay, of energy. And I really, really want you to understand and embrace that understanding, because I guarantee you it will change your life. It will change how you manage your diabetes. It will certainly improve any excess triglyceride levels, and it will start to bring the presence of insulin down in your body, which ultimately then enables you to have much, much, much better diabetes control. Okay? So, on that note, guys, I want to do a couple shout outs because we had a couple people join us while I was breaking that down. I want to do a huge shout out to Catherine Cleary. I want to do a huge shout out on Instagram to Daisy, to Kana.us. First time joining us on Instagram. It is great to see you here. Frank, it is great to see you on Instagram. Okay? And certainly Linda Latina on YouTube. Linda, it is great to have you here. Zubeda, great to have you here, Zubeda. I loved working out with you last week, guys. All right. And we got one last question from Sutethi. Sutethi from California asked, is there any other option than green juice for breakfast? All right. Well, Sutethi, there are many different flavors of green juice, okay? So I don't want you to, if your taste buds are particularly against green juicing, I want you to experiment with different flavors, okay? But all of the evidence, the real evidence, okay, the real people who have successfully reversed, reduced, controlled their diabetes, it revolves around the foundation of green juicing, okay? And there's an amazing book that I want you to check out. It's called The Live Green Cuisine by Dr. Gabriel Cousens. There's another book by Dr. Cousens called There Is a Cure for Diabetes. And in both of those books, he really explains how the consumption of chlorophyll can have a blood transformation effect. And I'm going to break this down for you guys one more minute here because this is so important to understand. When you start depending on who you talk to, people who advocate for green juice for breakfast will liken it to a blood transfusion if you do it consistently. And here's the reason why. Chlorophyll, which is plant blood, okay? Chlorophyll is the actual green, watery substance that exists in celery, in spinach, okay? In any green plant, okay? Chlorophyll is the blood of the plant. It is the liquid that carries the nutrients up and down the plant itself. Now, if you took a microscope and you examined a molecule of chlorophyll with a molecule of human blood, they are chemically and organically exactly the same. The only difference is a molecule of chlorophyll is built around magnesium, whereas a molecule of human blood is built around iron. But everything else about it, its organic chemistry structure is literally exactly the same. And depending on who you talk to, the daily consumption of green juice can literally have a blood transformation effect on you. All right, guys. I hope that was informative for you. I can't wait, okay, to hear from you guys. We're going to post the green juice recipe, okay, that just as a sample, guys. There's a general rule that I follow with the green juicing. It's a 3-to-1 rule. 3 times the amount of dark green leafy vegetable to 1 piece of fruit. So, okay, we're going to post the green juice recipe, and actually the whole article. It's called The Best Food to Eat Before Exercise with Diabetes. And we're going to post that right now for you, but let me actually just break this down right now. Because we're getting so many questions, we're getting so many questions about the green juice. Let me actually just post this for you guys, okay? But generally speaking, guys, Green juicing is all about 3 times the amount of dark green leafy vegetable to 1 fruit of choice. So for me, this morning, I did about this much baby spinach, and I did a half a cup of red apple. This much spinach, this much apple, okay? And that's just a guideline for you. But we're going to go ahead and post, okay? We're going to go ahead and post that information for you guys. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm glad that you found that this information was helpful, okay? And I can't wait to see you guys next time in the GlucoSezone. If you haven't downloaded GlucoSezone yet, guys, download it right now, okay? Join me in the GlucoSezone tomorrow morning, live at 10 a.m. Guys, we have hundreds of on-demand exercise videos in the GlucoSezone app designed specifically to help you reduce, reverse, and control your diabetes. And on that note, we're signing out. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.